Okay, we are going to begin. So we will start with a prayer and pledge, and then I will be doing a few introductions that I'll move through quickly because none of you are here to listen to me. So we'll start prayer. Michelle? Come on up here. That way I can give you the mic.
Father in heaven, we're so grateful we could meet tonight and be able to celebrate our freedoms and to learn more about how we can preserve these wonderful gifts. We are grateful for our founding fathers and for our documents that the Constitution and Bill of Rights and such help us to retain our liberties and teach us who we really are and how we can be. At this time, we ask that Spirit to be with us, that we will have protection and care, and that goodness will surround us in our travels. We are grateful for all that we have, and humbly ask for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. And we have Cindy doing a pledge, so please rise for the pledge, and Cindy will lead us. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all for coming out tonight. This is a great way to kick off state convention. Many of you will be there tomorrow morning at UVU, and I'll tell you, this video will be playing during voting tomorrow. And we have some travelers who I don't think are here yet who are coming from St. George just to see Jenica today. Oh, tell me, where'd you come from?
Vail, actually.
From Vail?
St. Vail, just north of St. George.
Thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
St. George. Guys ready for Africa?
Oh, we got another St. George. We have Africa. Awesome. We are committed people, and that's what we're going to be. So I just want to thank really quickly Jason Walton. This is his facility. Jason and I ran against each other for U.S. Senate last year. We've become good friends. And funny, I'm Carolyn Fippen, president of the Women's Republican Club of Salt Lake. We actually, by the way, the oldest Republican women's organization in the nation. Formed in 1899. And but I do want to thank Jason, and he has somebody, a staff member, Don, who's here helping us out. Thank you so much, Don. He's been a huge help. We really appreciate it. So if you need any help with anything, Don's your guy. And I also just want to acknowledge the Women's Republican Club executive team. Not everybody's here, and some are out in the hall. We have one member of our team, Chris Kimball, who's our treasurer, who does tours for a living, so she's in France or something right now. But like I said, Carolyn Fippen, let's see. Debbie Roseman is out helping people in, as is Carol Pfeiffer. She's out checking people in. And Gloria Bendis is first vice president. She must be out there doing stuff too. There she is in the back. Oh, and there's Carol. Okay, everyone's waving in the back so you know who they are. And Linda Davidson is the the previous vice president of this club. We were just elected in December, and Linda's here with her husband. Thank you so much, Linda. So, of course, we're all here for DataRepublican Jenica Pounds. And Jenica is here with her interpreter, Terrell. And her mother, who came just for us. I'm kidding. And so tell me your name. We communicate on Twitter, but I don't know your name. Okay, Joanne. Okay, thank you for being here. So I'm gonna tell you just a little bit about Jennifer, and I'm gonna turn it over to her. And she will have a presentation for us. I don't know how many of you follow her. I'm guessing if you're here, you do. But she just came up with some new tools that I put in a folder on X that I need to go back and look into a whole lot more. And I'm gonna say, I used the tools that she produced initially during the last legislative session. I worked with an economist and a guy who was a business consultant, and we put together a proposal for a Utah Doge using a lot of information that we got off of DataRepublican.com that Jennifer had come up with. So Jen is a software engineer, and I feel like most of us in the last 6 months just discovered who she is. She has about 750,000 followers on X. I have 4. Or 3,800 or something like that. But so she is my only X subscription, and you get nothing extra for the subscription, but we all get Jennifer. And that is worth every dime of the $3 that I spend every month. So she spends her time developing tools to increase government transparency. Check out the things that she's been doing. She's constantly, I feel like, developing new tools that I'm finding her talking about on X. And it allows like normal people like us, I am completely non-techie. It's why when you guys purchased your ticket, you didn't get an automatic receipt, because I had to set that up and I didn't know how to do that. And then we have Jenica, who I'll have it figured out before our next event. But then we have Jenica, who's developing tools that allow us to search massive amounts of information in these government databases. And I'm telling you, I feel like what is happening right now is what happened when rapists from 30 years before DNA was discovered suddenly realized their crimes could be uncovered and they could end up in prison. This is as powerful every bit and maybe more for its impact around the world and in this country, the work that she's doing to expose the rot that has been going on for decades. So I am just so thrilled to have her here, as I'm sure all of you are thrilled to be here with her. I'm just going to turn the time over to, I do want to say this, the most important part. She's a married mom with 2 boys, 11 and 7, and her husband isn't here tonight because he's doing things with the kids.
Yeah.
Kids always have to, and we all know this. So grateful she's here. I'm going to turn the time over to you, Jen, and thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. Hi, it's so nice to meet you all. I'm absolutely honored to be here. You know, Terrell, thank you for traveling with me. I can't do it without you. So I thank the data interpreter for all her too. And I also, again, thank you, Mom, for coming. I hope you're all following her. And I'm excited to meet you all. I'm excited to present it. So let's do it. This presentation is going to be a little bit different. So I kind of wanted to talk about how I arrived to this point, because so I've been on Twitter for like, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. It was really a hobby of mine for a long time, just to be analyzing data. I mean, I'm a data scientist. I was a little famous, but not like now. But back then, I went viral for predicting voting data. I actually went viral for making a custom map for what's happening in political races. So I made these maps, and I made it down to the city block level, like super accurate. And I used that to predict 49 out of 50 states correctly. When most polls would predict, like, who Harris would win, I didn't. I knew that was not happening. Because I knew what the data said, right? So during this time, I met with Charlie Kirk. And And he advised me and I advised him, and we just talked about voting, and we were successful. And the website was viral, got a lot of attention. And to that point, at that time I had about 50,000 followers. Like I said, it was exciting, but now I know. After election day, you know, I was so burnt out at work. I was working all kinds of other stuff. So I decided, I'm just gonna live cheap. I'm over it. And just see if I could relax. Like maybe I could actually retire. Maybe I don't have to work anymore. You know, so maybe I can just go hang out and post on Twitter recently. So I did random things that were all data-based. And in the first place, I started researching nonprofits before Trump became inaugurated. I was just looking. So my husband and I went to DC for the Trump inauguration, but that actually became canceled, but something else really cool happened. I got recruited by Doge there. Honestly, it was really weird. I traveled to the city and Doge knew I was there. Kind of weird, kind of mean, but all for the good, I guess. And that's why, you know, I mean, Trump has a lot of problems with betrayal in his first term. He was very focused on finding loyal people to work for him and to do this analysis. So they used recruiting strategy, and that's what brought me here. So when I announced I'm going to DC, they found me. Well, I guess I'm the right person. Anyway, so you know, they told me we need to cancel awards. Like, we know that there's awards there that are just ridiculous, but we can't find which ones are the bad ones because the database isn't set up, so we can't tell which awards are really bad. So could you help us with that? I said, don't you know what? When I get home, I'm gonna build a award search algorithm, and we'll see if we can find it. And that's how the DataRepublican.com was born. It became viral quickly. So 1 week after I visited DC, this tweet showed up, and it completely changed my life. Elon told all of his followers and everybody on Twitter to follow me. And then more and more and more and more followers started telling people, hey, follow me, follow me. Like Ben Johnson, Michael Flynn, Kurt Schlichter, sorry, oh, Schlichter, thank you. Kurt Schlichter. I don't know what to say. But that's how it became popular. So I decided I'm actually not going to accept the Doge job, but for a very good reason. Because if I accepted the Doge job, that means I couldn't tell you all what I found on Twitter. And I felt like I could become, well, I felt like I had my own mission behind. And I could use my platform in different ways to be more effective than Doge alone. So that's my origin story. Wow. So my first goal was to find waste in the government, obviously. Why? Because our nation, our national debt cannot continue the way it is. You know, Jerome Powell, paper, we need to cut the spending. And we need to do it quickly. So that was my goal, find ways so that we can cut some of the spending. So first we found USAID, and that was absolute waste. It was actually kind of funny, you know? Like we found all these really silly awards. You're never gonna believe this. Pansexual farm. I know, it's crazy. At first it was funny and I was laughing because there's all these really random, stupid awards like random Muppet shows and pansexual farm and all this stuff. And then something changed. I was looking deep, I was digging far. And I found out that a lot of the US aid dollars, a lot of state diplomat dollars, they were going into NGOs. And unfortunately, our congressmen sit on those boards. These 7 NGOs accept many, many millions of dollars. And that's just about the money we give them. The people who sit on the NGOs are also very, very important decision makers in our foreign policy. And I'll explain that later. So these NGOs, they're much more than the sum of their parts, these NGOs. They represent a soft power empire within our government that impacts the entire world. Members of both parties sit on these boards, Republicans and Democrats. It's not about right and left, it's about this soft power structure. They sit on Congress and they also accept monies and then they decide where the money goes. And something that all these NGOs have in common they say they represent democracy. And when I saw that, I thought, it actually started to make more sense. Why these people in the soft power structure keep saying that Trump is threatening democracy. But it has nothing to do with the vote. It has nothing to do with the democracy that we understand. This is a different meaning of democracy. So I had to research. What is the real meaning of this democracy? And so, you see the NGO in red at the top, the NED, National Endowment for Democracy. The National Endowment for Democracy, NED. The only purpose was soft power after the Cold War. To stop communism from taking over other countries. So that's the history. Jimmy Carter, you know, Jimmy Carter hated the CIA. I mean, he cut a lot of CIA funding. And you know, the CIA, they are dirty representatives. They're dirty. So when Reagan became president, you know, Reagan wanted to start that up again. But the CIA was super dirty. So he decided to do what instead? he started to rebrand the CIA as an NGO called National Endowment for Democracy, the NED. But Reagan had to actually convince the Democrats to cooperate. So how did he do that? What they did was they split the power in the NED. So from the NED, they made two more NGOs, the International Republican Institute and the National Democratic Institute, the IRI and the NDI. So that's how this all started. And it's this soft power democracy means an actual structure of people. So what you see here is a replacement for the CIA. Now, the big change happened after the Soviet Union fell. If you're old enough, you might remember President H.W. Bush. He was talking about the New World Order. Remember that? Now, that sounds kind of scary, doesn't it? The New World Order. No, it's not. It's not scary at all. What it really means is, it's that the old world order was America and Soviet Union Cold War era. It was that kind of time. That's the old world order. Now the Soviet Union has fallen. What came after that? That's just called the New World Order. It doesn't mean anything sinister, it's just the time after. But now the problem is, what are we doing with the NED and the IRI and the NDI? What are we doing with them? What's the point of them? In the New World Order. In the old world, they were supposed to fight communism, but communism is gone. So what are they doing now? That's where it becomes very interesting. This is where I got surprised. George Soros. He wrote an essay. And the essay was about his vision for the New World Order. This is the same George Soros that financed BLM movements, Tesla protests. He was against Israel, all of that. Oh, sorry, not Tesla, Israel, sorry. So, if you're here, you think, why is George Soros even involved in NATO? Like, what does he have to do for NATO? What's this guy want? But George Soros led the NED committee for Europe and Central Europe. He's been working with NED for a long time. And if you think about it, that's why he's banned in Hungary. And he's banned in some other countries too. A lot of people don't know. You know, we Americans, we think that he's financing Democrats. But to the rest of the world, he is a major player in planning and deciding foreign policy. So with that, we're going to go through that NATO essay. Tara's going to read some of my old tweets because it's really the best way to get the message out, as you know. The essay lays out a new mission for NATO after the Cold War. NATO will no longer be a defensive alliance against Russia. That is obsolete. Instead, it would proactively go out and shape other countries into open societies. NATO's new mission is best defined in terms of open and closed societies. Soros redefined peace and security, not as absence of war, but in terms of how many countries are open societies. Peace and security depend first and foremost on a successful transition to an open society. In other words, NATO's new mission, if a country doesn't adopt Western-style capitalism and become an open society with liberalism, NATO should step in politically, economically, and eventually militarily. So what is an open society? What does that mean? The term was coined by philosopher Karl Popper and expanded in his 1993 essay. Soros, of course, would go on to build a coalition of NGOs and interfere in US elections under his Open Society Foundation banner. Here are the elements of an open society, in theory. Democracy, free markets, civil rights, minority protections, transparency, and global rule-based order. In practice, open society means something very different. So let's go through the essay. Sounds like open society, a government which agrees with Soros and thus deserves to exist. Open society is based on the recognition that participants act on the basis of imperfect understanding. Closed society on its denial. The translation: you're an open society if you accept our interpretation of pluralism and Western values. Otherwise, we'll label you closed, even if your people elect their leaders or protect cultural traditions. And this gives us a pretext to justify military actions against you. Foreign aid is a pillar of open societies. The primary need is for constructive engagement in the transition to democratic, market-oriented open societies. Transition. We pour aid into countries that remake themselves in Soros' image. And no amount of money is too much to accomplish that because, again, we have redefined peace to mean as many countries follow the open society model as possible. Oh, and if aid fails, then we send the military. Sound familiar? Take a moment to think about this. What do you think this means for anyone who is opposed to foreign aid? They are agents of closed societies. They are a threat to national security. Ergo, they are a threat to democracy. Sound familiar? Open societies are ran by outside elites, not by the country's own citizens. Combating closed societies involves the building of democratic states and open societies and embedding them in a structure which precludes certain kinds of behavior. This point is perhaps the most ironic one. A democracy, according to Soros, is not decided by its own citizens. Instead, NATO's new mission is to impose their own ideology on others and build countries that agree with Soros. The new purpose of NATO is to assimilate countries as open societies like us. Therefore, if NATO has any mission at all, it is to project its power and influence onto the region. And the mission is best defined in terms of open and closed societies, which means NATO's new job is not to defend member states, but to expand its presence eastward and actively shape the internal politics of neighboring states, especially the post-Soviet bloc. And just a month after Soros wrote this essay, NATO started their first military operation in 45 years. And after that, we did many, many more military operations based on this. This is the list of all the military operations that we did, just based off this open and closed society sentiment. Open society is the model under which the Uniparty and NGOs operate. This isn't a theoretical essay. Washington implemented the playbook. So these things were all in the essay. 1994, I mean, this was the goal of the essay, this was the plan, be like, 1994, Partnership for Peace launched. 1999, NATO admits Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic. 12 close societies. 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Bulgaria joined. 2008 to 2022, Ukraine, Georgia, seek NATO pathway. And in 2023, Finland joins NATO and Sweden follows. As you can see, our foreign policy is the new world order. Soros communicated that very clearly, and we followed it. So why do people follow that? Like, why? And the reason, it's where you can get the most money and power. The oldest reason in the book. Money. Why did everyone go along with this model? Money and power. NGO networks, open society foundations means more influence, more contracts, more justification for expansion. If we can get the NED in your country, then we can do what we want. Bureaucrats and diplomats, career advancement, democracy building, that kind of democracy. International donors and foundations steer reforms through grant-making power. IMF and World Bank lend to reforming nations in exchange for austerity and influence. Private equity and multinationals buy up privatized industries on the cheap, like telecoms and oil and infrastructure. Western-aligned politicians receive aid, praise, and protection, even if they're corrupt or undemocratic in the way that we understand it. Post-communist oligarchs enrich themselves through Western-advised privatization of their businesses. Journalists and activists, funded by Western grants, shielded from local accountability. Professors and think tanks get fellowships, scholarships, media access for pushing open values. Even big tech enter new markets, post-liberalization, data access, censorship tools, ad revenue, and also the mainstream media, shaping narratives, controlling legitimacy, and reformer versus the strong man. And for some reason, we continue to work with Soros. And what I found out last week is that Soros' foundation was actually part of the NGOs that wrote the Afghanistan Constitution. And we all know how that turned out. That country is broken. It failed. Eric Summer and the whole thing. We tried to change Afghanistan to an open society. We tried to change it to a democracy. It didn't work. And now all of our foreign policy is about what? Regime change. All of our foreign policy is about changing closed societies into open ones. Instead of saying an open society, a closed society, we call it an autocracy. Instead of an open society, we call it a democracy. Polluting the words. For example, oh, we need to go to Iraq. Remember in Iraq, it announced that we were going to go over there, and because we were looking for weapons of mass destruction. But if you actually look at the writings in the NED at around the same time, and the NATO around the same time, they don't talk about WMDs at all. There's no mention about weapons of mass destruction. They talk about changing Iraq to become a democracy. That was the goal. We were lied to about the purpose of the Iraq war completely. And it's all written right there. You can read it. It's right there in their papers. Weapons of mass destruction. And of course, we failed at that too. But somehow, we still are putting a lot of money into going to foreign aid. And you need to understand, the very top priority of Congress is about continuing the perspective of DC. For DC, there's no home politics. Have you noticed that? We haven't debated about healthcare anymore. Why don't we talk about that anymore? That's our stuff. That's home stuff. Why don't we talk about universal healthcare anymore? It's all about foreign policy to them now. That's why last year, we can put $95 billion for the war in Ukraine like that. But we couldn't finance the relief for the Hurricane Helene victims. And if you dare to cut off that money spigot, because that's what it is, it's just money. If you dare to cut off that money spigot, in other words, if you practice any kind of populist principles or try and assert agency for your own nation, you are the enemy of democracy because George Soros said so. When I started this, I thought, Elon tweets about Soros, whatever. I thought Soros was scary. But then when I started researching, I found out how deeply involved he is in our foreign policy, like in everything in our foreign policy. He doesn't do much in here, but outside of our country, very involved in our government work. And our government just lets him do. What? Now, so if NATO's successful, I mean, allegedly, if NATO's successful, it means world peace, right? No, that's not true. They need foreign aid to keep distributing. And if you're opposed to them, you're a threat to that democracy. Our last president, Joe Biden, he stood up in front of everybody and he said, Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic. Well, why would he say that? That's 74 million Americans. Became the country's biggest threat. And 74 Americans have heard that, million Americans will never forget he said that. And I believe these people, when they say that we're a threat, it has a different meaning. In Europe, they've been working to ban political parties because they work to silence. They work to silence people. And who do they cancel? The people who want to stand up and stop a foreign aid. The people who want to be country first. And not prioritize for foreign aid. And when they get that power, we'll hear this speech again. Because this is the threat. And of course, they want to silence us, because this is the threat. So, a month ago, I started a website to search for the waste, DataRepublican.com. And we have found some. But what we really found was all of these NGOs, and all of these NGOs were responsible for bringing 20 million migrants into the country. And many of these immigrants receive benefits. It's hard to explain, but an open society, immigration is another kind of regime change, right? Because they invite all these people, all these immigrants, because the war didn't work in Iraq. So maybe if we invite them all here and fill their heads with ideas about how great America is, we can make our own regime change right here at home. But this is the ideology we're against. The same ideology which says 74 million Americans are the biggest threat to their own country. So now, cut spending. We need to take over this ideology. I don't know where, when, or what will happen, but that's the mission I'm on now. And I'm just trying to do my part. Thank you guys for your time.
Oh, no. Thank you.
We'll chat afterwards, Dennis. I'm so happy you're here.
Okay, we ended with the very perfect thing to your relationship, and Jennifer's with Dennis. I cannot express enough the gratitude that we all have for the work that you do. Thank you. I do want to mention, I used to sometimes for my job have different events, and I had someone who's sitting in the corner over here. I would hire her to make a checklist for me because I always forget things. And she didn't make a checklist for me this time because I don't have any money to hire her. This club is a nonprofit. But anyway, I do want to recognize some of the people who we have here because we do have Representative Coford mentioned that she is one of our elected officials. We have Representative Coford, we have Representative Lisenby, and we have Senator Baldry. Did I miss anybody else? And we have former Representative Kim Coleman. So would you all stand? Thank you for your support. And also, we have a number of Salt Lake County, we have 2 Salt Lake County Republican Party members of leadership here. And we have some people who have recently been elected. I gotta tell you, elections just took place for county leadership all over the state, so I don't really know exactly who is who. There are a couple. I guess that there were 2, and there may be more. So if you are with GOP leadership around the state, please stand. Oh my gosh, and Patty and Cindy, I was there when I got elected, and I totally forgot. So thank you all for your support. Thank you for being here. I do think that, I just wanted to make sure we recognized everyone, and I want to again thank you for coming and doing this tonight. We really are grateful. Thank you. Thank you. And